20 to 30 seconds after the battle has started, a magic circle flashes on the screen, and at the same time, a ball of light appears, signaling where the summoning core will appear. 5 seconds after that, the core itself appears. Every 20 to 30 seconds after the core has been destroyed, or after a summon phase has ended, the magic circle and the ball of light will appear again. Summoning cores do not appear during the summoning phase, and should one be out, then it will disappear. It takes 8 seconds for one character to fill the summoning gauge from 0. For 2 characters, it becomes 5 seconds to fill it from 0. And if all characters start summoning, then it's instant. There is a half-second delay from when the touchpad button is pressed until a gauge starts going up. When no one is summoning, the gauge falls at a rate of 12 seconds to go from full to 0. The summon phase lasts for about 30 to 40 seconds, and during this duration, the match timer freezes. Each summon has 2 normal attacks and 1 finisher. They will always start using attack number 1. Then they have 2 instances where they will randomly do attack number 1 or 2. They will then use their finisher. The summon attacks follow the bravery damage formula. However, you cannot apply buffs or debuffs to the summon, so all you can do is change the defense of its opponents. Also, their attacks will not cause a bravery break. All summon attacks have Vanguard level interruption, and can only be blocked with perfect defense. Ifrit and Odin have attacks that can destroy the dividers in Stellar Fulcrum. Each summon has 2 passives. The pre-summon passive is always active, even after summoning. The post-summon passive becomes active when the summon phase begins and continues until the end of the match. Ifrit's summon phase is good. Heat Rush, like all other summon attacks of its nature, can have a few problems with walls though. Even with the Warcry passive, you will still very rarely see a guard break. It can be useful for characters with strong pressure. Colossal Shantoto does become an instant guard break. Every character benefits from the increased attack power, which is what makes Ifrit a good pick. Due to how the damage formula works, with just the Meteor Strike passive, the attack increase is actually only plus 25%. Applying a small attack buff on top can minimize the rounding down for both. Since the pre-summon passive is not that useful, and the post-summon passive is very useful, teams with Ifrit should focus on getting him summoned as quickly as possible. Also, he might not always be useful on interdimensional steps in Alexandria, as matches tend to be over very quickly on those stages. Shiva has the scariest summon phase. Her normal attacks are big and leave behind ice traps that freeze opponents in place. The damage from Diamond Dust is in 2 parts, and this is what makes it really good for landing HP attacks. Diamond Dust is not that hard to dash away from, but you can use attacks that do not knock the opponent away or enfeeble to keep opponents in the attack. It is still possible to get out of it without dashing. After landing an HP attack, the bravery recovery is not constant, but starts out slow and then ramps up. This becomes slower the more HP damage is dealt. Shiva mostly impacts the slow section, with the rate being more or less equal across the board across the end. The amount of default bravery does not impact the bravery recovery time. Shiva allows you to minimize the risk of being broken after landing a high damage HP attack, and if you are broken, then the state only lasts for less than a second. The increased default bravery also makes it harder for you to be broken, and it makes your HP attack scarier. All characters benefit from these. which makes Shiva good for all team compositions. Like with Diamond Dust, Judgment Bolt can be used to set up HP attacks, but it's not as reliable. Should the opponents be clumped together when Judgment Bolt starts, then it's almost impossible for them to escape it. Ramuj should only be chosen when the majority of the equipped EX skills are buff skills. The cooldown reduction on hit is quite significant. For example, bravery attacks usually give between about 0.8 to 1.1 seconds reduction to cooldowns. With Remove, this becomes about 2 to 2.75 seconds per attack. Of course, this requires you to actually land attacks. Bards and X-Death can gain a lot out of this, as they already have ways of shortening their cooldowns. The increase in duration is good as well, but is often too short to actually make a big difference. For example, Mighty Strikes get a 2.25 seconds longer duration. HP Regen recovers 140 more HP. Zantsuken has a huge AoE and a vacuum effect. It is not that hard to distract an opponent for long enough to make sure that they are hit by it. In English and Spanish, the pre-summon passive is listed as increasing dash recovery. This is wrong. As far as I know, the other languages show the correct information. This passive was changed several months before NT was released. The increased maximum dash gauge allows characters to dash for about half a second more. This is useful for Sephiroth and Tidus, for whom the dash gauge is central to their mechanics. But this is not a large increase. The 2% movement speed increase from Blade Glint is barely noticeable. This is the difference for dashing along the edge of Eden with and without Odin. Post-summon is barely any different from pre-summon. This is what makes Odin probably the worst summon at the moment. Tsunami works the same way as Zantsuken, but the attack lasts longer and has a smaller AoE. The bubble attacks are what makes Leviathan's summon phase good. Both attacks spawn 3 bubbles per opponent that slowly tracks them for about 10 seconds. There is a good chance of a pinball effect. Leviathan's summon phase will likely not help you land HP attacks, but it will likely remove a good chunk of your opponent's bravery. Leviathan's passives do exactly the same thing as Remove's, except that they affect the debuff skills instead. Take note that Bindga and Doom do not get a duration increase, nor do Bravery Conduit and Vacuum. Leviathan has the problem that buff skills are currently more popular than debuff skills. Unlike the other summons, Alexander will stay in place outside the map during the summon phase. He will always spawn in the same location on each map. Because of this, you should know where to dash to avoid Divine Judgment. Should the opponents be unlucky, there is a possibility of pinballing between the lasers of Radiant Sacrament. Also, the lasers last long enough that they can hit twice. The big problem with Alexander is that he does not help you win faster, he just makes you die a little slower. 100 extra HP will often not make a difference, but it might. Shantoto's Rage and Noctis's Arminger only activate when there's a set amount of HP left, so Providence makes it so that they need to take more HP damage. Due to how the damage formula works, Divine Bulwark will only reduce bravery damage by 18.75%. Due to the bravery system, reducing bravery damage does not stop the HP damage from hurting. The ways of counteracting HP damage is to recover it afterwards, or to land bravery attacks to reduce an opponent's bravery beforehand. In those cases, remove and Ifrit respectively will likely be more useful. Mega Flare is one of the worst finishers. The beams are slow moving and they push the opponents away, which makes it not that hard to move away from. His normal attacks are actually quite good though. Both the wall and the breath itself of Flare Breath have hitboxes. All aspects of Bahamut are slightly weak. His passives are not as strong as Ramuh's and Leviathan's. Bards, Terra, Kuja and Noctis have ways of increasing their cooldown reduction on hit for their unique EX skills, which makes Frenzied Bellow a good way of further increasing that. Apart from those, the reduction on hit is not that big. Also, Ramsa gets pretty much nothing from this passive. The average duration of the unique EX skills is 20 seconds. This means that Draken Scourge increases those by 1.5 seconds, which is barely anything. In some cases, it might be better to bring Boon or Jinx instead. This is my list of the summon's usefulness. Shiva is always useful, which makes her the top pick. She has a good pre-summon passive, a scary summon phase, and a good post-summon passive. Ifrit is only useful once he has been summoned, but his post-summon passive is probably the best one in the game. Ramuh is above Leviathan, more or less because of HP regen. Bahamut slightly underperforms, but can still be useful with the right team. Alexander is towards the bottom because he does not aid in winning, he only makes losing slightly slower. Odin is at the bottom because his passives barely do anything.